Hi, these are the video notes for theme notes. So, your I can statements, I can define thematic concept and thematic statement. I can identify a thematic concept and I can identify a thematic statement. So, we're defining and identifying. So, defining and identifying. So, we're going to start with theme. So, there's two ways we're going to think about theme, because theme should be a relatively familiar concept from the last couple of years. First one is a concept, and the second one is a statement. So, it's two ways to format theme. A thematic statement is just a sentence, and a thematic concept is a word. So, you'll know right away reading, is it a word or a sentence? And then you'll know if it's a concept or a statement. A thematic concept is a big idea that a text features and focuses on. Concepts can be found in many stories and places, and they are general, so they're not specific. A thematic statement, on the other hand, is a universal truth based on a text and stated in a single sentence. So a universal truth is something that applies to all people. So we could say, like some cliche ones are like, the truth sets you free. So that's true for all people. People feel better normally when they tell the truth. Or love is necessary for. All right, so a universal truth is something that's true for all people for the most part. So love is required for order to be able to be happy or something like that. So we'll go through some more examples. And it's stated in a single sentence. It's more specific than a concept, and it goes beyond the text. It applies to other texts as well. So it's like a lesson we learn from a story that informs our life, and we can see in other stories. So concepts versus statements. A concept is a work's thematic concept is a broader topic that it touches on. And then a statement is a particular argument that the writer makes about the topic through his or her work. So you could say if the topic is like love, then in the story we got to see, what does the author think about love? Do they think it sucks? Do they think it's necessary for survival? Do they think a certain type of love is more important than another type? So a concept is just a single word, a big idea, and a statement is like an argument that someone's making about the concept. Concepts, examples of concepts are judgment, love, revenge, forgiveness, so all big ideas. And then, so the example just like straight across from the statement. So if judgment is a concept, we can take that word and put it into a sentence, and that's a statement. Human judgment is imperfect. Love cannot be bought. Revenge, getting revenge on someone else will not fix your problems. Forgiveness, learning to forgive is part of becoming an adult. So all of these are big ideas, and these are statements about those big ideas. And all of these are universally true, so they can apply to all of us. But you don't necessarily have to agree with these. You can make other arguments about these concepts. So concepts, are they explicitly stated in the text? So is like the word love used in a story about love? It might be, but not always. So it's possible, but it doesn't have to be. Statements, are they explicitly stated in the text? So if we go back, can we go back? Boop, 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 boop. Like, would these statements be in a story that we're reading? So that's the question. No, not normally. So when authors use stories to teach us lessons, and these statements are kind of implied. So there's something that we have to read a story and figure out, okay, what's the big idea? What's the concept? And then what does the author want us to think about the big idea? We write, like we as readers write these statements, and authors include these concepts. So it's kind of like the author is trying to hint at what they want, what the thematic statement is, but we have to figure it out as readers. So coming back to this, remember there's two different ways to think about theme. There is the concept, which is a word, and there is a statement, which is a sentence. So is love a thematic concept or a thematic statement? Love is a concept because it's just a single word. Is it a concept or a statement? Love is necessary for survival. And that is a statement. Redemption is a concept because it's a single word. Those who work hard and have empathy will be redeemed. That's a statement because it's a sentence. Fate is a concept. Fate or destiny should not be meddled with. That's a statement. So why are themes important? Themes are what the reader will take away from the text. So every time you read something, there's a lesson being implied or something that you're supposed to take away from it, to learn about like humanity in general, like how we're supposed to live our lives. Important life lessons can be learned through reading and being able to identify themes. How do readers identify thematic concepts and write thematic statements? So you got to think about 4 different elements of stories. So the plot, so what happens, what the protagonist does, so the main character, what symbols there are, and then what are some motifs in the story. So using plot to identify theme, we can ask ourselves these questions. What are the main plot elements in the work, including the arc of the story? So what happens overall? What's the setting? What are the characters? What are the most important moments in the story? How does it end? And how is the central conflict resolved? So we can use these questions to potentially figure out what a theme might be in a story. Using protagonist to identify theme, who is the main character and what happens to him or her? How does he or she develop as a person over the course of the story? So normally we're supposed to see ourselves in the main character. How do they change and what do they learn? Normally that's the lesson that we're supposed to take away from the story. Using symbols and motifs. Are there any motifs or symbols that are featured prominently in the work? For example, in the title or recurring at important moments in the story that might mirror some of the main themes. Symbols. So a symbol is any image or thing that stands for something else. So for example, in the United States, an eagle is a symbol of freedom and strength. In the Lord of the Rings movies and books, the ring is a symbol for power, selfishness, and greed. So these are just examples of symbols that we can look for in stories. Examples of symbols in literature. So things that we've read already this year. The eye in The Telltale Heart, the old guy's vulture eye, and the beating heart at the end that causes him to confess. Those are both symbols that help us lead to themes. So the eye is like kind of the source of the main character's madness, according to him. And then the heart is ultimately what the main character hears beating over and over again, and that's what causes him to confess. So this heart symbolizes guilt, or it could symbolize guilt. It's kind of controversial, but you could say because the heart beating is what led him to confess, we could say it was his guilty conscience, but the heart just symbolized that. In the monkey's paw, the paw is a symbol of greed. So people making wishes to make their lives better. Without working, they're just greedy. They want things without having to work for them. So that paw symbolizes greed. And if we learn from the story, it doesn't end very well. That greed is a bad thing. Motifs. Motifs are a symbolic image or idea that's repeated in a story. So kind of similar to a symbol. It's even right in the definition. An example is a repeated reference to weather that mimics character emotion. So when things are scary, it's storming. When people are sad, it's raining. When people are happy, it's sunny outside. So that's an example of a motif. Repeated descriptions of things in terms of light and dark and good and evil. Motifs are a higher level of identification, so they can be hard for us to see as we're reading. But once they're pointed out to you, it's easier to go back and be like, oh yeah, that's something I noticed as I was reading the story. So stories we've read this year: The Telltale Heart, The Monkey's Paw, and The Frankenstein Play. I just want you to think about, so we kind of already talked about what some themes in The Telltale Heart or The Monkey's Paw might be, and Frankenstein too. So I want you to try and think of one thematic concept and one thematic statement that you could try and think of. So what What's a big idea that's in one of these stories? So love, temptation, jealousy, greed, fate, good and evil. So all of those are examples. And then what is each story or one story trying to say about that big idea? So that'll be your last thing. And then we are all done. So let's see if I can get out of here.